Hi guys, welcome to our first video tutorial. So I have seen some students making mistakes when adding real numbers. So for example, there are some students when they are doing their math exercises, whether it's solving system of equations or whether it's doing any other types of problems. So when they encounter numbers like -4 plus 3 or -56 plus 8 or -12 minus 6, I see some students making mistakes when solving these type of exercises. So they end up not getting the right answer. So that's why, for this reason, I'm going to show you a little trick so that you won't make mistakes again when solving these types of problems. So the first thing that I would like to show you is we are going to study the sign of numbers. So let's clean this up. So for example, let's say we have the number plus 1. So here's the number 1. So the sign of this number 1 is located right here. So the sign of the number 1 is located on the left side of the number 1. So the sign of this number 1 is what? Positive. So the sign of any real number is located on the left side of that number. So that's why the sign of the number 1 is located on the left side of this number 1. So the sign of this number 1 is positive. So when we have another number, let's say -2, so the sign of the number 2 is negative. Why? Because as I said earlier, the sign of any number is located on the left side of the number. So the sign of the number 2 is negative. So the sign of any number is located on the left side of that number. And in this case, we don't say -2, but we say -2. So it's only in an operation when you have, for example, 4 minus 2, that you read it as 4 minus 2. But when you have a number by itself, such as this one, or -5, you do not say -5. Since it's by itself, you say -5, since it is not in an operation. So now, how about the case for fractions? So when you have a fraction such as -1 divided by 2. So this is a fraction right here. So what is the sign of this fraction? The same rule apply for simple numbers. So the sign of this fraction is negative. So the sign of 1 over 2 is negative. So how about if you have something like this? -1 over 2. In this case, well, we may say that the sign of the number 1 is negative, but the sign of the number 2 is a positive. So any number that do not have a sign, its sign is positive. So which means if there's nothing here, if this space is empty, so you have to think of it as there's plus here, but we just don't write the plus. So when you have a negative, divided by positive, the answer is always negative. So the sign of this fraction right here, 1 over 2, is negative. And when you have 1 divided by -2, so the sign of this fraction right here, when you have a positive divided by negative, the sign is always going to be a negative. And as I said, when a number do not have a sign, when the space is empty, the sign is positive. So when you have a positive divided by negative, it will always be negative. Which means when you have a fraction such as negative, when the negative sign is here in front of the fraction bar, 1 over 2, this is the same as negative 1 divided by 2, and it is also the same as 1 over negative 2. So these are all equivalent. The meaning of equivalent means they are the same. Yep. So now let's take another number. Let's say the number 5, for example. So as you can see, on the left side of 5, there's no sign. So if a number do not have a sign on its left hand side, so the sign will always be positive. Okay? So now it's time for me to challenge you. I'm going to give you some examples, and you may be wondering, why am I showing you the sign of numbers now? The reason is because on our next video, we are going to be solving exercises such as negative 4 plus 3, negative 12 minus 2, and then you will see the reason why I made you learn the sign of numbers. So now, for anything, let's say, for example, you want to become a good basketball player. So in order for you to become a good basketball player, of course, you have to go and play basketball. You have to practice. So which means for almost pretty much anything in life, you have to practice. So if you don't practice, you won't be good. So you may have seen my explanations and you may say, oh yeah, I understood. Yeah, that's right. But if you don't practice, you are going to end up forgetting. So that's why I'm going to ask you to pause the video and try the following exercises on your own. So we have negative 4 plus 3, 1, negative 3 over 5, and negative 3 divided by 5, and 1 over negative 6. So the purpose of this exercise, what I'm asking you is, I would like you to pause the video and do these on your own. So the question is, what are the signs of the following numbers? So basically, you have to write down on a paper what is the sign of each of the following numbers. So go ahead and pause the video, do the exercises, and then when you are done, hit the play button again, and we are going to do them together. So see you soon. All right, did you figure it out? So now let's do them together. So as I said, I will repeat myself again. The sign of a number is located on the left side of that number. So the sign of the number 4 is what? Is negative, since you just have to look at the left, and what is that sign? It's negative. So the sign of the first one is negative. So how about the second one? If you look at the left, the sign of the number 3 is what? Positive. So now how about the third one, the number 1? I said when a number do not have a sign, when there's an empty space, what is the sign of that number? The sign of that number is positive. When there's nothing, it means the sign is positive. So the sign of the number 1 is positive. So now for the third example, for the fraction, so the sign of this fraction right here, when we look at the left, the sign that is on the left is negative. So the sign of this entire fraction right here is negative. So now for the fifth fraction, which is this one right here, and the sign of the first number that is on top of the fraction is what? Negative. And the sign of the second number, the number that is on the bottom of the fraction, or the denominator, is what? When there's no sign, the sign is what? Positive. So when you have a negative divided by a positive, so the final outcome is what? A negative. So for this reason, the sign of this fraction right here is negative. So now, for the last one, the sign of the number 1 is what? Plus. Because when there's an empty space, the sign of that number is what? Plus. So now when you have a positive divided by a negative, the sign is always going to be a negative. So the sign of this entire fraction is negative. So at this moment, you may be wondering, oh, Boubacar, I have never seen in a textbook where they're asking me to solve such exercises. But in our next video, when we begin learning how to add and subtract real numbers, then you are going to know the reason why I made you learn the sign of numbers first. And thank you for watching. And please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. And I will see you on the next video. Bye.